the billionaire who couldn't have kids, then he turned away the ones he dreamed of. What would you sacrifice for success? And when you finally have everything you thought you wanted, what happens when the universe offers you the one thing money can't buy, but asks you to give up everything else? Mark Walton stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, watching the city sprawl beneath him like a circuit board of dreams and ambitions. At 42, he commanded a tech empire worth $3.2 billion, yet the reflection staring back at him looked hollow, haunted by a question that had tormented him for years. Why couldn't the man who could buy anything have the one thing his heart desperately craved? The irony wasn't lost on him. Mark Walton, the boy who once wore shoes with holes, now owned 17 homes across 3 continents. The child who ate cereal for dinner because his mother couldn't afford groceries after paying his school fees now employed thousands. But children of his own? That remained maddeningly out of reach. Before we dive into this incredible story, drop a comment below and tell me what city you're watching from. And if you're ready for more powerful stories like this one, smash that like button and hit subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Now let's continue. The journey to this moment began 35 years ago in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment where 7-year-old Mark watched his father wither away from cancer. David Walton had been a dreamer, a man who believed in tomorrow even when today offered nothing but medical bills and false hope. The night his father died, Mark made 2 promises. He would never let his mother suffer again, and he would build something so magnificent that poverty could never touch his family. His mother, Elena, became his universe. She worked 16-hour days as a housemaid for wealthy families, her hands cracked from bleach and exhaustion, but her eyes always bright when she asked about his homework. "Education is the ladder out of here, mijo," she would whisper, counting crumpled bills at the kitchen table. "Climb it for both of us." Mark climbed. He devoured books, conquered mathematics, and earned scholarships that his mother celebrated by crying into her worn apron. When he graduated with honors from Columbia with an accounting degree, Elena sat in the front row wearing her only good dress, tears streaming down her weathered face. His first job at TechFlow Solutions was meant to be temporary, just a stepping stone while he figured out his next move. But Mark possessed something rare, the ability to see patterns where others saw chaos. He noticed inefficiencies in the company's financial systems that were costing millions. His proposals didn't just save money, they revolutionized how the company operated. Within 2 years, he was head of financial operations. Within 5, he had the insight and connections to launch his own venture, Nexus Technologies. The company started in his mother's garage, but Mark's vision was larger than any physical space. He saw a future where artificial intelligence could predict market trends, optimize supply chains, and eliminate human error in financial systems. The success was meteoric. Nexus Technologies went from 3 employees to 3,000. From garage startup to global powerhouse. Mark made his first billion at 31, his second at 34. He bought his mother a mansion, established scholarships for underprivileged children, and still felt empty. The night he met Sophia changed everything. Or so he thought. It was October 15, 2019. Mark was rushing to a crucial meeting with Japanese investors when his driver took a wrong turn in downtown Chicago. Frustrated and running late, Mark decided to walk the remaining 6 blocks. That's when he saw her, a woman in a yellow sundress standing beside a broken-down Honda Civic, tears streaming down her face as she spoke frantically into her phone. Something about her desperation reminded him of his mother's struggles, and before his rational mind could intervene, Mark approached. "Car trouble." Sophia looked up, embarrassed. "The engine just died. I have a job interview in 20 minutes, and I can't afford to lose this opportunity. I've been unemployed for 3 months. Mark should have called her a cab and continued to his meeting. Instead, he heard his mother's voice. "Success means nothing if you don't help others climb the ladder." "I'll drive you," he offered. "You don't understand," Sophia laughed bitterly. "The interview is in Naperville. That's 40 minutes away. Then we'd better hurry." During that drive, Mark learned that Sophia Martinez was a graphic designer who had been laid off when her advertising firm downsized. She was a single woman supporting her elderly father's medical expenses, interviewing for a position that paid half her previous salary. Her resilience, her refusal to surrender despite crushing circumstances, reminded Mark of every quality he admired in his mother. He missed his billion-dollar meeting that day. Instead, he waited in the parking lot for 2 hours until Sophia emerged with tears of joy. She got the job. Their courtship unfolded like a fairy tale. Mark courted her with the patience of someone who understood struggle, never flaunting his wealth until she was ready to see it. When he finally revealed his identity, Sophia was shocked but not gold-struck. She loved the man who had sacrificed a crucial meeting to help a stranger, not the billionaire he happened to be. They married 18 months later in a ceremony that made headlines, but their happiness was private, genuine. Sophia brought warmth to Mark's sterile success. She taught him to find joy in small moments. Sunday morning pancakes, walks in the rain, quiet evenings reading together on their couch. But the one thing they both wanted most remained elusive. They tried for 2 years before consulting specialists. The diagnosis hit Mark like a physical blow. Severe oligospermia with motility issues. The medical jargon translated to a simple, devastating truth. Natural conception was nearly impossible. There are options, Dr. Peterson explained gently. IVF with ICSI, donor sperm, adoption. Many couples in your situation. Mark stopped listening. The boy who had conquered every obstacle through sheer determination now faced something his willpower couldn't fix. For the first time since his father's death, Mark felt truly powerless. They tried IVF. 3 cycles, each more emotionally brutal than the last. Sophia endured hormone injections that made her alternately euphoric and devastated. Mark watched his strong, beautiful wife become fragile, desperate, clinging to hope with bleeding fingernails. Each failure felt like another death in the family. Maybe it's not meant to be, Sophia whispered after the 3rd failed attempt. She was curled on their bed, still in the hospital gown, staring at nothing. Maybe we're supposed to find meaning in other ways. Mark couldn't accept that. He threw money at the problem. The best fertility clinics, experimental treatments, even a questionable procedure in Switzerland that cost $200,000 and yielded nothing but false hope. Each failure made him more obsessive, more consumed with the idea that his wealth should guarantee him anything he desired. The obsession consumed him. Board meetings became secondary to research sessions about fertility treatments. He neglected Nexus technologies, delegating crucial decisions to subordinates while he pursued increasingly desperate solutions. His marriage began to fracture under the weight of his fixation. "You're not the man I married," Sophia told him one night after he missed their anniversary dinner to consult with a reproductive specialist in Germany via video call. That man understood that love was about more than getting what you want. "I'm doing this for us," Mark protested. "No," Sophia said quietly. "You're doing this for you. I've made peace with our situation. When will you?" But peace felt like surrender, and Mark Walton had never surrendered to anything. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in March 2023. Mark was reviewing quarterly reports when his assistant buzzed in. "Mr. Walton, there's a situation at the Chicago Children's Home. They are requesting your presence." Mark had been a major donor to the children's home for years, ever since Sophia suggested they channel their pain into helping other families. He assumed this was another fundraising request. He was wrong. Sister Margaret, the facilities director, met him at the entrance with an expression Mark couldn't read. "Mark, thank you for coming so quickly. We have an unusual situation." She led him through familiar corridors lined with children's artwork to a conference room, where a social worker sat with a thick file. "3 days ago, we received custody of 2 children," Sister Margaret began. A 7-year-old boy named David and his 5-year-old sister, Lily. Their parents died in a car accident. No living relatives. Mark's chest tightened. "I'm sorry for their loss, but I'm not sure why." The children's father left specific instructions in his will, the social worker interrupted. If anything happened to him and his wife, he wanted the children placed with Mark Walton. The room went silent. Mark stared at the social worker, as if she had spoken in a foreign language. "That's impossible. I don't know anyone who." "David Thompson," Sister Margaret said softly. "He worked in your accounting department from 2015 to 2018. The name hit Mark like lightning. David Thompson, quiet, methodical, one of the best junior accountants Mark had ever employed. A man who stayed late to perfect his work, who spoke adoringly of his wife and children, who had left Nexus Technologies for a better-paying position to support his growing family. David always said you were different from other executives," the social worker continued. "He told people you remembered employees' names, asked about their families. He believed you understood the value of family because you'd fought so hard to provide for your mother." Mark's hands trembled as he opened the file. Inside were photos, a gap-toothed boy with serious dark eyes, a little girl with pigtails and a mischievous grin. There were school records showing excellent grades, medical records indicating perfect health, and a handwritten letter from David Thompson. Mr. Walton, if you're reading this, something terrible has happened to Sarah and me. I know this is an enormous request, but I've watched you for 3 years, and I believe you're the kind of man who would love David and Lily the way they desire to be loved. They are good children. They will bring you the joy that every parent discovers, that loving someone completely changes who you are in the most beautiful way possible. If you cannot take them, I understand. But if you can find it in your heart to open your home to them, they will make you proud every day for the rest of your life. Mark stared at the letter until the words blurred. When he looked up, Sister Margaret was watching him with compassionate eyes. They are beautiful children, she said gently, but they are traumatized. David barely speaks. Lily cries for her parents every night. They need stability, love, patience. Mark's voice failed him. Can I meet them? Sister Margaret led him to a playroom where David sat reading to his little sister. The boy looked up when they entered, and Mark's breath caught. David Thompson had been right. The child had serious dark eyes that seemed far too old for his face. David, Lily, Sister Margaret said softly, this is Mr. Walton. Your daddy worked for him. Lily looked up with cautious interest, but David's expression remained guarded. Are you here to take us away? The boy asked. The directness of the question stunned Mark. Would you want me to? David considered this with the gravity of someone much older. Daddy said you were a good man. He said if anything happened, you might take care of us. His voice dropped to a whisper. But we know nobody really wants to take care of other people's kids. The words shattered something in Mark's chest. He knelt to David's level, seeing his own 7-year-old self in the boy's resigned acceptance of life's cruelties. Your father was wrong about one thing, Mark said carefully. He said you'd be other people's kids. But if you came to live with me and my wife, you'd be our kids. That's how it works when people love each other. For the first time, David's composure cracked. Do you promise? Mark thought about his empty penthouse, his failing marriage, his desperate pursuit of biological children. Then he looked at these two beautiful, broken children who needed exactly what he had been unable to give himself, unconditional love. I promise, he said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. The legal process took 3 months. During that time, Mark visited David and Lily every day, slowly building trust. He read them stories, helped with homework, and watched as they cautiously began to hope that maybe this powerful stranger really would keep his promise. Sophia was initially supportive but concerned. Mark, adoption is beautiful. But are you sure you're ready for this? You've been so focused on biological children. These children need us now, Mark replied. Isn't that what matters? But as the adoption moved forward, Mark's old obsessions resurfaced. He threw himself into creating the perfect environment for David and Lily with the same intensity he had once applied to fertility treatments. He renovated an entire wing of their house, hired child psychologists, enrolled them in the best schools, and created trust funds worth millions. You're doing it again, Sophia warned. You're trying to solve everything with money and control. I'm providing for them, Mark protested. They need parents, not providers. The tension escalated when Mark's business began suffering from his divided attention. Nexus Technologies' stock dropped 15% in 2 months as Mark delegated crucial decisions while focusing on the children's transition. Board members expressed concern. Competitors sensed weakness. You're going to lose everything you built, his CFO warned during a heated board meeting. The Japanese deal is falling apart. The European expansion is stalled. Investors are getting nervous. Mark stood at the same windows where he had contemplated his emptiness years earlier, now facing a different kind of void. He had finally been offered the family he had always wanted, but accepting it meant potentially sacrificing the empire he had built to honor his father's memory. The breaking point came when Lily had a nightmare. Mark heard her crying at 2 a.m. and found her huddled in her new bed, sobbing for her parents. I want my real mommy, she wept as Mark held her awkwardly. The word real hit Mark like a physical blow. Despite months of effort, despite his promises and provisions, he was still just a stranger caring for other people's children. The biological connection he had craved, the natural bond he had imagined, none of it existed. At breakfast the next morning, David noticed Mark's distraction. Are you sad because Lily called for her real mommy? Mark was startled by the child's perceptiveness. I understand she misses her parents. She didn't mean to hurt your feelings, David said with the wisdom of someone who had comforted his sister through months of grief. She loves you too. But loving new people doesn't make you stop missing the people who died. The simple truth in those words forced Mark to confront a reality he had been avoiding. He had been so focused on filling the void left by his inability to have biological children that he had never fully grieved that loss. He had treated David and Lily not as individuals deserving love for who they were, but as substitutes for the children he couldn't have. That realization led to the hardest conversation of Mark's life. I need to tell you something, he said to Sophia that evening. I don't think I can do this. Sophia looked at him with a mixture of disappointment and resignation. Because they are not biologically yours. Because I'm not ready to be anyone's father, Mark admitted. I thought I was, but I keep trying to fix them instead of just loving them. They deserve better than someone who sees them as a solution to his own problems. The decision to withdraw from the adoption was devastating for everyone involved. David's expression when Mark explained the situation would haunt Mark forever. The look of a child whose worst fears about adult promises had been confirmed. You said would be your kids, David whispered. You deserve parents who will love you for exactly who you are, Mark replied, his voice breaking. I'm not ready to be that person. Sister Margaret was disappointed but understanding. The children will find the right family. But Mark, you should know, they are not problems to be solved. They are gifts to be received. In the months that followed, Mark threw himself back into Nexus Technologies with renewed focus. The company recovered, stock prices soared, and new ventures flourished. He had saved his empire, but the victory felt hollow. Sophia left him 6 months later. I thought I married a man who understood that love requires sacrifice, she said as she packed. Instead, I discovered I married someone who only understands sacrifice when it serves his ambitions. Mark wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. How could he explain that he had sacrificed his chance at fatherhood to preserve the legacy he had built to honor his own father? How could he justify choosing financial success over the family he had claimed to want? David and Lily were adopted by the Hendersons, a middle-class couple who had struggled with infertility before deciding that love was more important than biology. Sister Margaret sent Mark updates occasionally. David had joined Little League. Lily was taking dance lessons. Both children were thriving in a home filled with laughter rather than luxury. The irony was complete. Mark Walton, the man who could buy anything, had been offered the greatest gift imaginable, the chance to father 2 children who desperately needed a parent, and he had turned it away because it didn't match his specific vision of what family should look like. Now, 2 years later, Mark stood in his empty penthouse surrounded by the material symbols of his success. He had everything he had once dreamed of and nothing he actually needed. The empire he had preserved continued to grow, but growth without purpose felt like elaborate emptiness. His phone buzzed with a text from Sister Margaret. Thought you'd like to know. David made honor roll again. He still talks about the man who taught him that promises matter, even when keeping them is hard. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give is knowing when to let go. Mark stared at the message until his vision blurred. Outside his windows, the city pulsed with the dreams and ambitions of millions of people, each believing that success was just one breakthrough away. But Mark now understood something that had taken him 44 years to learn. The difference between getting what you want and wanting what you get. He had spent his entire life climbing the ladder his mother had described, believing that reaching the top would give his existence meaning. Instead, he had discovered that meaning wasn't found at the destination. It was created in the choice of who you brought with you on the journey. The saddest part wasn't that Mark Walton couldn't have children. The saddest part was that when the universe offered him exactly what his heart craved, he chose his fears over his dreams, his control over his capacity for love. Some prisons are built of poverty and limitation. Others are constructed from success and the inability to accept gifts that don't arrive exactly as imagined. Mark had escaped the first only to construct the second, and now he understood that wealth without wisdom was just another form of poverty, one that no amount of money could cure. As he stood in his temple to ambition, Mark realized that David Thompson had been right about one thing. Loving someone completely changes who you are in the most beautiful way possible. The tragedy was that Mark had been offered that transformation and walked away, choosing the familiar pain of what he couldn't have over the uncertain joy of what had been freely given. The boy who had once promised to build something magnificent had succeeded beyond his wildest dreams. But in the end, the most magnificent thing he could have built was a family. And that blueprint had required not money or power, but the courage to love without conditions. And that was the one thing Mark Walton's billions couldn't buy. This story raises profound questions about what we truly value and what we're willing to sacrifice for our definitions of success. Mark had the resources to give David and Lily everything money could buy, but struggled to give them the one thing they needed most: unconditional love and acceptance. What do you think? Could Mark have found happiness if he had chosen differently? Is it ever too late to redefine what family means? Or are some opportunities lost forever when we let fear override love? If this story made you think about the complex relationship between success and fulfillment, consider subscribing to the Beyond Yesterday YouTube channel for more thought-provoking narratives that explore the hidden costs of our choices and the unexpected places where we find meaning.